Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Jai Sai Ram. Guru Purnima is a most auspicious and blessed opportunity to reflect on our connection with our Lord Sai. A guru is the one who removes the veil of darkness and shows us the way to our true selves. And so, with this endeavour, we aim to seek some answers from our elders and those who had a close proximity with Swami, and how we can strengthen our connection to the Sai within. Today, a group of youth are blessed to have an opportunity to be in a conversation with Shitu Uncle, who has not only been an ardent devotee of Swami since his childhood, but also has served multiple roles within the organisation, both nationally and internationally. In particular, though, is Shitu Uncle's belief in the youth of today. He never misses the opportunity to encourage and support youth, and is a great believer in how today's youth can help change the world by first transforming themselves. So welcome, Shitu Uncle, and thank you for agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Since the loss of Swami's physical form, and now during COVID, the loss of our centres, how do you think we could create the connection that we used to have before COVID started?
So Nish, this is really interesting. So I hear a lot about connection from lots of the young adults around the world. And it makes me laugh. I chuckle a bit because this word connection, it's a very modern word that has come about, I think, due to social media, because in our quest to always be connected, whether we're connected on our phones, we're connected on our devices, but back a few decades, the term that we all used to use and Swami used to use was union. But what really makes me happy is that the young adults, especially in this country, are looking at ways of the best way of connecting with Swami. Connection is really important. And I don't think this is an isolated incident just because of the pandemic. But whether the pandemic happened or didn't happen, whether when the pandemic goes away, connection is really important, your connection with Swami. If you are to be effective, if you are to be powerful, if you are to have all the wonderful tools that Swami wants you to have, you need to be connected. I think it's important for you to ask yourselves, why do you want to be connected? What's your motivation? There should be an intent. Do you want to be connected to Swami because your center president, your center chair, your parents want you to be connected? If you are to achieve connection with Swami, it must come from within your heart. And I promise you, with my hand on my heart, that if you dive deep into this murky water of connection and how you achieve it, you will attain moksha and liberation. It really is in your grasp. So first of all, ask yourselves, why do I want connection with Swami? Then I want you to think about, what does connection mean? Now, Swami has said many times that the connection that you should have with him is heart to heart. There is never any third party intermediary. And if anybody ever tells you that they can help you connect to Swami, they can, do it for you, or, if you do this magic formula, you will have connection. Don't believe them, because it really is between you and Swami, heart to heart. You should see connection, really, it's like a magnet, north and south. And for those of you who are doing GCSEs, have done GCSEs, A-level physics, you all know about magnets, north and south. North and south, when you put magnets together, they attract. God is north, we are south. When you put us two together, we naturally attract. But if you have a north and a north magnet, it repels. Very much the laws of positive and negative currents. Positive and negative currents, they attract each other. That's connection. But I do think connection is a bit of a myth. We are already connected to Swami, whether you know it or you don't. The connection is all there. But I think it's in the mind that we think that we are not connected to Swami. How to be connected to Swami? Coming back to your question, Nish, you must have devotion. devotion is the key. If you want to be connected to Swami, you must be devoted to him. What does devotion mean? You must win the heart of the Lord, but it's not easy. I don't know how many of you know the stories of all the epics where, all the humans would go out into the forest and meditate for years and years and years to get a boon from God. In that day, they used to meditate like Ravana. He used to meditate for years and decades in order to get a boon from Lord Shiva. But our Lord, Swami, he's so compassionate. He's made it so easy for us in this Kali Yuga. All you have to do, if you want to be connected, if you want to win the heart of the Lord, is to love him. That is devotion. Every moment of the day, think of him. Your devotion has the power to change your lives. And you know what? And if I can quickly share a story with you, back when I used to take the UK youth pilgrimages to Swami, we used to take choirs and bhajan groups. We had a girls group musical choir, we had a boys musical choir. And once I got the message, well, while we were in Prashanti, the girls were good, but the boys weren't on par and the boys won't get to perform. You can imagine how heartbroken they were. But the boys, they stayed up all night practicing, pleading with Swami, praying to Swami. They made Swami say yes. And what happened? In the end, they performed. Another story. Once, when I was in Parthi, I remember one of the college professors telling me that Swami had sent him to Vrindavan to let the boys were praying, and it was their anniversary, and they wanted to put a program on for Swami. And they were praying to Swami to come to Vrindavan. Swami sent a message with this college professor, tell the boys that I won't be able to come. The next day, Swami called the college professor and said, get the car ready, I'm coming to Vrindavan. The college professor said, but Swami, yesterday you said you weren't gonna go. And then Swami said what to do. Their devotion was so great. They prayed all night. They prayed so hard that I have to go. The third story, I think you may not know, but I think your parents will know. There is a very famous singer in India called Subbalakshmi. And whenever she used to sing, wherever Swami was, he would come running. She was like the top singer of classical music back in the day. One time she was in Vrindavan, and in Vrindavan, I think it's on the Sunday, they have bhajans from the morning all the way to the evening, 12 hours. Now, as you know, many of you might know, Swami comes in the morning for darshan and he comes in the afternoon. He doesn't generally come midday. This lady had such a yearning for Swami that she sang, and she was belting out the most amazing, devoted bhajans that you could possibly imagine. There was a real yearning, there was a real intensity, and every time she sang, tears came down her eyes, to the point where the time where Swami is supposed to be resting, we later heard that the people inside said that Swami, for some reason, felt very agitated that day. He didn't want to sleep. He kept pacing, he kept looking out of the window, and we couldn't understand why. The intensity of her devotion got to such a crescendo that Swami started walking down the stairs. He said, I'm going to the bhajan hall. All the sevadars, all the people that normally walk with Swami, all came running after him. Swami came straight up to Subbalakshmi and he started waving his hand. There was nothing in his hand, and from his hand, this great big gold chain that was massive in length, probably double the size of Swami, came out of his hand. And he threw it to Subbalakshmi and said, here is your rope that you had tied me with. Your devotion untied me and made me manifest here. So, my friends, if you want to be connected to Swami, you must have devotion, you must love him, and the intensity must come from your heart. I hope that answers your question, Nish.
I would like to ask then, did you ever have an experience where you felt that intense level of devotion to Swami? Or did you ever have an experience where you kind of realized, actually, this is the way that allows me to be connected best with Swami, through my devotion?
So that's another really good question. So let me give you some context. So I found out about Swami when I was 9, and my parents weren't devotees. We found out about Swami. Actually, we found out about Balvikas or SSE. People I knew were going there, and I was like, I want to go here. I want to learn something. So I found out about Swami at the age of 9. I first physically met Swami at the age of 16. The most wonderful experiences that I had with Swami were during those times when I hadn't seen him physically. And how did I worked on that connection. And I think nowadays, people think having a connection or union with Swami is very easy. It's about going to the center. It's about doing 1 hour of bhajans and they think you are connected. It so isn't. You have to really work at this. You have to really work at this relationship, Soham. You have to, so you're going to ask me, so what did I do? Now, you guys are really lucky because you have social media, you have websites, you have phones, you have so much. When I was growing up at the age of 9, 10, 11, we had nothing. We had photos of Swami, we had centers, we had books. That's all we had. Imagine having to connect to someone that you don't know. That's 1,000 miles away. But you know, when you see Swami, he is so beautiful. And the way I developed my connection to him was praying really hard, praying with intensity, asking him, please, Swami, reveal yourself. Please let me be close to you. I read lots of books. I prayed a lot. I chanted, and I took the time and trouble to know about Swami. Now, the one thing that I'm finding with young adults around the world is that they want to pray to Swami, but how do you pray to someone if you don't really know much about them? So therefore, my friends, I urge you to read some books on Swami. There are so many. Go to the bookshop in Region 2. You're lucky you have a bookshop there. Go and read the bookshop, or a lot of the books are online. I really urge you to find out more about Swami. You know, there are so many books. There's Satyam Shivam Sundaram that's written on his life. There's books by devotees. Really immerse yourself in understanding Swami. But nowadays, you don't even have to go to the bookshop. It's all on YouTube. There are so many fantastic speakers. You know, I really recommend you to listen to Dr. John Hislop. He was an American devotee back in the 60s and 70s. And the reason why I'm asking you to look him up on YouTube, Swami kept him always with him. Whenever Swami went in the car somewhere, Dr. John Hislop was always with him. And once Dr. John Hislop asked Swami, Swami, what have I done to achieve this? And Swami said to him that it's not just through this life. It has taken 2 to 3 million years of devotion to me that has given you this availability of mine. That wherever Swami went, Dr. John Hislop was always there. And if I can just remind you of, there's a wonderful story where he went with Swami to some devotee's house. And the devotee wasn't, the devotee had only prepared food for 50 people, usually part of Swami's entourage. When the people in the localities in Bangalore found out that Swami was coming to this devotee's house, hundreds and hundreds of people started accumulating outside the road. Imagine your mum had, you're told Swami's coming to your house, Swami. Your mum cooks for 50 people, which is normally the number that, comes with Swami. And you know our mothers, if she cooks for 50, 100 people can easily eat that food. Imagine looking outside your house and seeing 500 to 1,000 people. They got really worried. Swami went there and Swami started talking. Just as he was about to go into the house, Swami started talking into the space. And Dr. John Hislop was like stunned. And Swami said to Dr. John Hislop, Hislop, close your mouth, because his mouth was gaping. What Hislop had seen was 2 angels appear with trays of food. This is why this gentleman, this Sai devotee, has had phenomenal experiences. So please look him up. So I'm coming back to my question about my relationship with Swami. There's been so many. One time, and I think I mentioned this at the birthday, everybody had forgotten my birthday, and I was really upset. Went to the center, no happy birthday, nothing. And when you're young, you expect at least your friends to say happy birthday. But you know what? Swami never forgets. And I was sitting in front of him, in front of the chair. And at the end of the bhajans, you know, we are customary, I don't know whether you do this in your center, so you put a rose on the handrest. At the end of the bhajan, Swami, in his invisible form, flicked the rose, and people saw it like flick and then fall into my lap. You know, there are so many stories that I can narrate to you. But the important element in this is that you can have those experiences, but you have to work on your relationship. You have to love him. You have to feel him. You have to feel him in your heart. You know, it's like, think of the one person in your life that you absolutely adore. Multiply that by 1,000,000,000,000, and that's the love that you should have for Swami. From the moment you wake up, from the moment you go to sleep, think of him, speak to him. You can talk to Swami about everything. Swami is not a fuddy-duddy. You can talk to him about whatever is worrying you, anything, and I promise you the answer will come. But you have to put in the hard work. Union with Swami, connection with Swami does not come overnight. For me, it took me many, 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 many years. Imagine from 9 all the way to 16 constantly. And every time you do something, you know, there would be setbacks, there would be challenges. You know, the one thing that I would recommend to all of you is don't give up the centers. You know, the center is where it's like a fast track. How many of you have been to the airport and you've been in that long queue and you see all these business class passengers going down the fast track? That makes me really grumpy. When I'm going to India, we have to stand in the long queue and it's all these people quickly like go to the fast track. Okay, you don't have to queue. The center is like the fast track. If you go to the center, I assure you, you will be on a fast track to your connection with Swami. Another analogy, I know a lot of you like to go to the gym. And my son's going, you know, he loves going to the gym. And sometimes I see him around the garden doing press ups, playing basketball, doing stuff. But he says to me, when he goes to the gym, when he has a personal trainer, he accomplishes more in an hour than he does doing whatever he does around the garden. The center is like a gym, okay? Your center president or regional president is your personal trainer. And it's not easy. I know you know it's not easy. You know, some of the letters that I get from young adults, you know, they have this thing, they go to the center, they want to make a change, they want to make a difference, they want to lead, but then someone in the center will say, oh, Soham, go and put the sheets out, go and sweep the floor. You know, it pricks at your ego and you sort of think, well, I shouldn't be doing that. I've got a degree in leadership. You know, I should be leading the center. I should be telling people what to do. That's the power of the center. And you know what, when you remove your ego, when you forget about yourself, and when you accept everything as Swami, that's when the magic happens. Thank you, Swami. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Shitu uncle. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
So I have a question as well, actually, on that. And obviously, you know, as youth, when we don't get that connection with Swami that we're looking for, we feel like it's some sort of spiritual failure that we've experienced. But you've given us, obviously, the tools to overcome this. It's through devotion. But also, particularly at this time in our lives, we deal a lot with worldly failures as well, and things like careers and professional failures. And there's a lot of obstacles there to overcome as well. So how should we approach this side of our lives as well, keeping Swami in mind?
You know what? Can I start off by saying in spirituality, there is no such thing as failure. Swami is not going to let you fail. There is a reason why you today are wearing white and you're on a call when your friends are out there playing cricket, they're at the beach or whatever. There is something special about all of you. Swami once said to me that all of his youth, all his young adults around the world have all been handpicked by him. So first of all, get this idea of failure out of your head. You are all going to do really well. But there are tips. There are steps that you need to take. The world, you know, once I was sitting with Swami and I was just looking, he was just sitting and he had his palms on his hands and I was looking at his palm and I was just thinking sneakily, how on earth does he bring out those rings and all those sweets and things from his palm? Swami straight away in a millisecond knew what I was talking at. thinking about. And he said, you know, in this hand, the whole jagat, the whole world is in my hand. What does jagat mean? Coming and going, coming and going. You know, that's our human cycle. You are born, you die. You're born, you die. You have to have countless. If you remember that story I said about Dr. John Hislop, it took him 2 to 3 million eons, lifetimes, to be that close to Swami. So from that, you know it's not easy. You have to keep working. You have to work at it. In your careers, in your studies, no, you're not always going to get the grades you want. You're not going to get the institutions or the workplace that you want. You are going to come up with failure, but it's how you see that failure. You have to surrender. I was a worrywart when I was your age, and I used to worry a lot. I used to worry about, oh my God, will I get that A? Did I do well in that essay? Will I get that university? I used to be like OCD worrying. I was once called inside the interview, and I was sitting alone with Swami in the inner room. And out of the blue, Swami said to me, so how are you, sir? And I said, oh, fine, Swami. And he said, no, not fine. And he got really serious. He said, worry, worry, worry. Worry about studies, worry about careers, worry about parents. So much worry. And at that point, I knew he knew, and my eyes filled up. And I said to Swami, what do I do? And the answer came very simply. And he said, when you feel engulfed in worry, just think of me and I will help you. How easy is that? Just thinking of him. Coming back to what I said to you with connection, you have to spend your day with Swami all the time. If you get the connection piece right, your life is a jigsaw, okay? If you get the connection piece right, everything else will fall into place. Let me give you an example. I never knew what I wanted to do. I was more interested in going to the center and being with my fellow young adults and my youth, and having a great time at SSE and the Seva activities. We used to have a blast. I was more interested in that than worrying about, okay, what university. There's so much pressure on all of you nowadays for your careers, your studies. But my one philosophy which got me through is I used to leave everything to Swami. Swami, it's up to you. I surrender my life to you. If you want me to go and sweep the streets, I will sweep the streets. If you want me to have a good job, I'll do that. But I know you won't let me down because you're my best friend. One time, me and Rita went to Swami in the mid-90s. I was married then. And I was at this American bank. And in the interview, Swami asked me, and it was early on in my career. They were, they weren't paying enough. Really poor salary, but I was working all hours, really pushing myself, really, as you do at the start of your career. Swami asked me, who do you work for? And I'm not going to say the name of the bank, obviously, because you never know who's tuning in to the Harrow West satsangs. But anyway, so I said the name of this American bank, and it was one of the top banks in the world. And Swami said, no good. And I was like, okay. You know what, Arnav? I came back after my beautiful trip with Swami. On the first day in the office, you have the blues, like you go to school, first day back from holiday, you have the blues. And I got a phone call, and the phone call was from a headhunter. And he said, Mr. Chudasama, we've been trying to get hold of you. There is a British bank that has found you, and they want you to go and work with them. They want to meet with you. And to cut a long story short, I met with them, and then they offered me a job. But do you see, this can work on your university, your studies, but you have to have faith in Swami. You have to believe, you have to love him. You have to constantly talk to him. You have to push yourself. And if I may be bold enough to say, I don't see that intensity in many of the young adults nowadays. They don't push themselves. You guys give up too easily. Don't talk about failure. Believe in it. Swami is going to make great things happen to you. He's going to make sure that you get the best jobs. He's going to make sure you have the best salaries. He's going to make sure that you get the best partner. He's going to make sure that your parents are looked after. you know what? Swami has given all of us an assurance. Not only will he look after you, but he's going to look after your kids and your kids' kids. So please, I really urge you, develop that love, that connection, and that faith in him.
Thank you very much.
Who's next?
When preoccupied with our worldly life and duties, how do we look out for signs from Swami that tell us whether we are on the right path or not?
You know, that's a very good question, Diana. Signs are so important. You always have to be aware. First of all, whenever I ask for a sign, I always pray to Swami. Now, I think you're probably all too young, but back a few decades, many devotees used to like to do a yes/no chit. They would ask Swami a question in the prayer room. They'd have a piece of paper that says yes and a piece of paper that says no. They'd jumble it up, and then they'd ask Swami the question and they'd pick a chit. If it said yes, they would do something. If it said no, they wouldn't. I never used to believe in that. I used to think it's the whole law of probability. But what I used to do was I used to pray to Swami, Swami, I have this problem or I have this question. Please, will you give me an answer? And we were taught that then you have to look around you. You have to keep your eyes open because that answer will come. It could be, you could be walking down the street and it could be an advert on a bus. It could come from anywhere. But when you see that answer, you'll get a little tingling feeling inside of you. That's the answer. So my advice to you, Diana, would be ask Swami the question and then watch out for the answer. The problem is many of our young adults don't ask Swami. We were once in an interview with the UK youth group that we took 2004. There were 160 of us. Swami had taken all of them into the mandir. And you know what Swami started by saying to all the young adults? He said to all of them, you don't use me enough. Imagine the Lord of the universe, this magnificent manifestation of divinity that can do anything. And he's saying to each one of you, you don't use me enough. So Diana, from this day forward, I want you to use Swami. I want you to ask him, what should I do? What should I become? What subject should I study? And I promise you, if you have faith in him, the answer will come. He will change your course. He will change your destiny. But you have to believe. And I think the problem nowadays is people don't have confidence in Swami. They just treat him as a photo. They treat him as a little image on WhatsApp or YouTube. Don't underestimate him. You have to believe in him and put full confidence in him. And I promise you, he will transform your life. If I go back to when I was 9, when I first met Swami, I always used to pray to Swami. I didn't know what to study. I didn't know what to become. But I wanted all the best things in life. Please, Swami, I know you can make that happen. He made me study. He chose my career. He chose my A-levels, my degree, my jobs fell into my lap by accident. It all happened. But how did that happen? I had faith in him and I followed the signs. If I can give you a very quick example of how I fell into financial services or asset management. I finished my degree, finished my master's, didn't have a clue what I was doing. Can you imagine the pressure I was under by my parents of, Shitu, how can you not know what you want to do? You've done 2 degrees now, come on. It's the summer. I remember having this chat with my father. Come on, what are you gonna do now? So anyway, so this was my crunch time, went to Swami for the summer. And I was like, Swami, you need to get me out of this predicament because what do I say to my parents? How can I get to 22 and not know what I want to do? So, and you know what, to make matters worse, I'd finished my studying. We had gone to Swami to get marriage blessings. I was getting married. Imagine this, going to Swami to get marriage blessings, but not having started your career. How embarrassing would that be for not only for you, but for your parents? I mean, I'd had sort of short-term jobs until then. A gentleman, there was this taxi company. They went up to Rita and they said that we have this package of Ayurvedic medicine that needs to go to an English lady in London who's very sick. Will you take it? So this was back in the day when, you know, you can't really take medicine on a flight because it could be anything, especially if you don't know someone. So Rita said to this taxi company that, you know what, I have to speak to Shitu. So let's see. Simultaneously, another man on that taxi company had already found me and said, we know you're from London. Will you take this box of medicine? Without even thinking, I said, yes, of course, because, you know, when someone is sick and they need medication, you don't hesitate, you help. Swami's always taught us to love all and serve all. Anyway, took this parcel. We were really nervous. Rita was nervous. Hey, we get stopped by customs. They're going to open this box and they're going to say, what was all this concoction? Is it heroin? Is it drugs? I mean, it could have been anything. Anyway, so cut a long story short, got back home. Nothing happened. Swami protected us. Rang up this lady. She said, we're going to come and pick up the parcel. English lady, lovely English lady came to the door. I had this box. And she said, oh, I've seen you somewhere. She happened to be a Sai devotee. And she said, I've seen you at one of the centers. And we got talking on the doorstep. She asked me, so what are you doing? So I said, I finished my master's. She goes, well, what career are you going to? And I said, don't know. And she goes, what, you don't know? And I said, no, just come back from Swami, so I'm still getting over jet lag. And she said, hang on. She waved to her husband, who was in this really fancy Range Rover. He got out, all suited, booted. They came inside, and she said, meet my husband. He's the chairman of an asset management company. And she said, Charles, I want you to offer this young man a job. So imagine, that is the power of our Swami. If you have faith, if you believe, he will make the most amazing, extraordinary things happen. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shitu Uncle, for those enlightening questions. And I think this final one is going to very nicely sum up what we've talked about today. So during this auspicious occasion of Guru Purnima, what should young adults reflect on and do to show our gratitude to Swami?
Okay, that's a very beautiful question. For me personally, Guru Purnima is it's a day when you thank your Guru. Who is your Guru? Your teacher. You know, the prayer that we all are taught at SSC, Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhu Chasakha Tvameva. Lord, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my best friend, you are my teacher, you are my everything. And that's the prayer that I always say to Swami. You are my everything, you know, and everything I am, everything I have become, I am very grateful because my young friends, I didn't come from an extraordinary, fantastic, brilliant, you know, high hierarchy family. I really am a very, very simple person from a very simple town in London, in Croydon, didn't know much. And everything that I have become and everything Swami has taught me is because of him. He's my guru. More than that, he's my best friend. And I think on Guru Purnima, I'm going to be saying a huge thank you, blowing him lots and lots of kisses, and really surrendering my life. Many, many years ago, I think and I think I've shared this with some of you, the very last meeting that I had with Swami, when, you know, me and Ajintya bowed down and kissed Swami's feet, you know, we said to Swami that we surrender and sacrifice our whole life to you. We will serve you right to the end, right to the last breath. We will do whatever you want us to do. And that's my gratitude to Swami. And I want that to be your gratitude to Swami as well. Swami is going to do amazing things in your life. He's your best friend. And be grateful. Be grateful that he chose all of you to be in his lifetime. Be grateful that you knew him. Be grateful that he loves you, and watch the amazing transformation that's going to happen in your lives. I have full confidence that you are all going to lead amazing lives, and you're going to transform other lives of other youth in your lifetime.
Thank you. I think that's the end of the questions now.
Well, I really enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something along the way. And I
Yeah.
hope you're going to put into practice even a tiny, tiny bit of what you've heard. And I look forward to meeting you all in person, hopefully not virtually. And it would be lovely to meet all of you 3D.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you for coming and spending
Thank
your
you.
time with us.
Pleasure. Sairam.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Sarah.
Sarah.